discover the incredible moment she blushed as a cowboy promised to transform her life forever. Sarah felt her cheeks flush as Jake's warm gaze met hers for the first time amidst the churning clamor of the diner. Here she was, a 30-year-old waitress and a single mother, serving coffee and burgers to an endless stream of customers in the small Texas town where dreams tangled with the humdrum of daily life. The burden of responsibilities had turned her hopes of becoming a veterinarian into a distant whisper, overshadowed by the grind of keeping her spirited daughter, Lily, fed and happy. But there was something electric about Jake, his smile, the confident way he held himself. For a heartbeat, she dared to allow her dreams a moment in the sun. The world around her faded as her mind spun. How could she consider him an ambitious cowboy with connections that could resurrect her dream when she was entrenched in her reality? A mother making ends meet. The diner was a sanctuary one moment and a prison the next. Every coffee pot she filled and every plate she served echoed with her father's teachings about the dignity of hard work. But did it have to come at the cost of her aspirations? How could she drag Lily into a world where hope felt painfully unattainable? These thoughts gnawed at her, leaving her breathless and confused. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Suddenly, the laughter around her turned into a dull roar as Jake leaned over, his voice a low murmur that sent a shiver down her spine. You really can do this, Sarah. I know people. We can make it happen. His eyes held a promise that made her insides twist. Was it enticing or terrifying? The tension in Sarah's body tightened as the weight of expectations settled heavily on her shoulders. Would pursuing her dream reflect weakness or strength for Lily? As rumors floated around town, some would surely raise eyebrows at her association with the cowboy. The ache in her chest deepened, blurring the line between hope and fear. When the community prepared for the local cattle drive, everything felt magnified, a stage set for a performance she hadn't rehearsed for. Amidst the laughter of neighbors, there stood Jake, unwavering and supportive. Every moment shared with him drew her closer to a life of possibilities. But criticism loomed like a storm cloud above. Could she dare to embrace his offer? Yet beneath her unease lingered an intoxicating draw toward him, a flicker of life in an otherwise predictable routine. The day brightened until it reached its zenith, the tension crackling between them like summer lightning. Standing at the crest of a hill, they watched the cattle stretch before them, a tide of dreams waiting to wash over her. Jake's steady gaze met hers, inviting but daunting. Just as she steadied herself to respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the crowd, echoing doubts that clawed at her resolve. Her heart raced as she realized the noise was more than just distraction. It was a conflict threatening her most vulnerable moment. And in that chaos, as they both felt the tension shift like quicksand beneath their feet, Jake stepped forward to shield her from scrutiny, to offer the warmth of unspoken commitments. The air turned thick with uncertainty, the weight of every decision, every potential path stretching before her in a suspended moment of time. What would she choose as the future hung in the balance? And would she muster the courage to leap into the unknown? As Sarah stood in that liminal space, where possibilities swirled through the air like dust in a sunbeam, a gnawing anxiety began to intertwine with the thrill of Jake's promise. The reality of what lay ahead pressed heavily upon her chest and stirred a relentless questioning that refused to yield. Each heartbeat echoed the implications of her decision, forcing her to confront both the allure of change and the terror that accompanied it. Jake's presence radiated a quiet confidence that intrigued her, yet Sarah felt like a boat tossed in a storm. Memories of sleepless nights and hopeful dreams felt distant. She could almost hear her father's voice reminding her of responsibility, of the pragmatic choices that had shaped her life thus far. How could she turn her back on stability for the uncertainty of chasing dreams? And yet, the image of her daughter's bright smile, her laughter, painted an urgent picture that urged her to act. "Let us go for a ride tomorrow," Jake suggested, breaking through her thoughts. "You'll see the ranch, more of the world outside this town." His enthusiasm was seductive, promising a glimpse into the life she had buried in pragmatism. A fleeting thought of Lily arose, tethering her back to the diner, the familiar grind, and all the sacrifices she had made. Could she entertain this idea without jeopardizing her daughter's future? But deep inside, there simmered a defiant voice, yearning for something more. "What if this is my chance?" it asked, stoking embers of impatience that she hadn't dared to fan before. The following day dawned bright and clear, and as the sun poured light over the horizon, Sarah donned her boots and lunged into the unknown. Together, they rode through towering trees and lush pastures, inhaling the crisp air that seemed to hold promises of freedom and adventure. For the first time in years, she felt the burden lift, if only briefly, as winds of possibility brushed against her skin. Yet it was her own reflections that challenged her resolve. Memories of biology classes and notes filled with dreams of veterinary medicine flashed in her mind. "Remember what you wanted, Sarah?" She chastised herself. The connection with Jake felt right, but what would it mean? Would it help her reclaim parts of herself long forsaken or entangle her deeper in distractions? Jake's voice broke her reverie. "You're thinking too much." A teasing smile flickered as he effortlessly maneuvered his horse. "Sometimes you just have to steer away from the paddle and let the current take you." She bristled at the suggestion. "What if I haven't learned to swim yet?" He turned to her, eyes sparkling with sincerity. "Then let me teach you. You'd be surprised at how strong you really are, Sarah." The depth in his gaze ignited a flicker of hope, but also unease. Would accepting his mentorship mean abandoning her current path? As they returned to the ranch, thoughts swirled like wind through the grass. Sarah felt a blend of gratitude and confusion. Was she ready to trust someone else? And as the embers of questioning lingered in the back of her mind, a new doubt came crashing over her, that voice that faintly whispered of limitations and fear. Returning to Lily, holding her daughter's gaze might be the strongest test yet. The balance of pursuing a dream and nurturing her own legacy. With Jake's encouragement and those whispers of the past dancing in her thoughts, she stood on a precipice of decision. Would she accept his mentorship and risk everything for a chance at her dreams? The sun began to dip low on the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched out behind her like unresolved questions. What she didn't yet realize was that the real journey wasn't just about the leap into the unknown. It was unearthing the strength buried deep within. The moment of truth loomed closer, and the question glimmering in her mind whispered with urgency, could she truly pivot towards her dreams without losing herself? As she turned to catch Jake's eye, both a challenge and a question lingered in the air between them, poised to reshape her trajectory forever. The time had come to face everything she had feared for so long. The air hung with anticipation as Sarah navigated the emotional landscape between her newfound connection with Jake and the responsibilities she bore for Lily. The following days passed like a river flowing into uncertainty, each moment amplifying her inner struggle. Would pursuing her dreams mean abandoning the stability she had forged? Could she truly embrace the life Jake envisioned for her, or was it merely an illusion? A transient spark in her otherwise calculated existence? Jake continued to invite her on rides, each excursion layered with accidental lessons and playful banter that tugged at her heart. "Just do it for yourself," he would say when she hesitated, and there was a warmth in his encouragement that felt foreign and yet intoxicating. Their horseback adventures painted vibrant pictures of possibility, yet they also served as stark reminders of her self-imposed limitations. One evening, as the sun fractured over the fields, illuminating the horizon with hues of orange and lavender, Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing her down. "Why do you keep holding back?" Jake asked one day as they sat on the steps of the cabin, the sounds of crickets taking over the silence. His expression was earnest, devoid of judgment, but it struck a chord deep within her. "I have to think about my daughter," she blurted, a tremor in her voice. There was the wall she'd built around herself, the barriers she never fully acknowledged until now. Jake, unfazed, countered, "But what if that dream leads you to become the best version of yourself for her?" The question lingered, heavy with implications, causing Sarah to confront her few choices. She could remain in the safety of her known world, or she could leap into the unpredictable expanse before her. Each option carried its own risks and potential rewards. It wasn't just about her anymore. It became a discussion of legacy and the environment in which she wanted to raise her daughter. Challenging herself, Sarah began to explore aspects of her identity she had long suppressed. Days spent at the ranch awakened a curiosity she hadn't felt in years. She started reading more about veterinary medicine again, often losing herself in the pages of thick textbooks, searching for remnants of the aspirations she once wore proudly. Every newfound piece of knowledge felt empowering, urging her forward. This newfound passion bred fierce reflections about how she could bridge those desires with reality. While Jake's mentorship offered guidance, it also ignited further questions. Could she thrive in that space? Would she find fulfillment, or would she falter under the weight of expectation? Then came the moment that changed everything. Jake invited her to a local event to present the ranch's community initiatives. "You have to show them what you're passionate about, Sarah," he urged. The event itself felt like the pulsating chaos of opportunity wrapped in a tight bubble of anxiety. Would she stand before her peers, share her vision, and accept the possibility of rejection or praise? As the event neared, Sarah found herself trapped in a whirlwind of self-doubt. Could she articulate her feelings in an authentic manner? Would people see her for who she was, or merely as a diner waitress chasing fleeting dreams? With every passing day, she felt the creeping realization that this journey was as much about courage as it was about confronting her fears. The day arrived. The lights sparkled with an energy and excitement that buzzed like a live wire. In that electrifying moment, Sarah's heart raced as she contemplated stepping forward. Would she transform her hesitations into tangible action? The stakes felt raised. This was more than an event. It was a crucible for her ambitions, a testing ground to define the future she envisioned. As she glanced at Jake, who stood off at a distance, his smile affording her a silent promise of support, Sarah felt the spark ignite into flames. Could she come to embrace not only the potential of her passions, but also redefine her role as a mother and as a woman of ambition? The moment loomed closer, everything she had feared rippling in the air around her. With her heart hammering and thoughts swirling, she took a steadying breath, ready to face the arena of her dreams. The eyes of the crowd turned toward her, and all that was left was to find her voice. But deep within, a whisper of doubt asked, what would happen if she failed? As the weight of the crowd's gaze fell upon her, Sarah felt the air thicken, constricting her breath. She stood at the edge of her own self-doubt, her mind racing with the choices that had led her here, a point of potential transformation, where each whisper of encouragement from Jake echoed in her ears like distant thunder. He had always believed in her, but would that belief be enough to lift her above the storm brewing in her heart? The podium felt alien against her palm, a boundary between the safety of anonymity and the raw exposure of vulnerability. The shadow of her insecurities loomed large, whispering warnings that snaked through her consciousness. What if they saw her as merely a waitress struggling to lift herself from mediocrity? Taking a deep breath, Sarah centered herself, recalling the exhilaration she felt so many months ago when she first imagined this moment. She had envisioned articulating her passion for animal care, her vision for improving the lives of injured horses, and her desire to learn and evolve within a community that nourished her ambitions. But now, the expansive possibilities contracted to a singular fear: failure. Then, As if ignited from within, she remembered Lily, the small girl who looked to her for strength and encouragement, forging dreams of her own in a world still unnamed. Would Sarah's decision not just shape her future, but also illuminate the path for her daughter? What if they see me for who I really am? Sarah questioned internally, the thought igniting a flicker of resolve. With that flicker, she stepped forward, allowing courage to act as a bridge over her trepidation. "Hello," her voice rang out, surprisingly steady, and as she surveyed the crowd, the sea of unfamiliar faces transformed into a mosaic of potential allies and supporters. She could feel Jake's gaze coaxing her on, steady and reassuring, a beacon in her haze of doubt. As words began to flow, painting her vision of veterinary medicine intertwined with ranch life, she felt an unexpected surge of adrenaline. Sharing her journey, the nights spent dreaming of becoming a veterinarian, the triumphs over self-doubt, and the intense love she had for animals, each fragment unraveled the convoluted threads of her identity, allowing the brilliance buried in her heart to emerge. "Every animal has a story," she asserted, her passion igniting the air around her. "And I want to help tell those stories through healing and compassion." The crowd leaned in, some nodding in agreement, others glowing with encouragement. In that fleeting moment, Sarah embraced her narrative, anxiously aware that this was just the beginning, a leap into the unknown where her dreams rested against the canvas of possibility. As she completed her presentation, applause washed over her like a gentle rain following a storm. But even amidst the applause, uncertainty gripped her. Would they really believe in her vision? In that chorus of appreciation, a deeper, more troubling thought crept in. What if it was all fleeting? Once the noise subsided, and she stepped off the stage, a rush of exhilaration pulsed through her veins. Jake's eyes sparkled, a question unfurling behind his smile. "How'd that feel?" For the first time, Sarah acknowledged the truth. "I feel alive." With that honesty, she realized this journey was not merely about achieving her dream, but rediscovering layers of herself long buried beneath self-imposed limitations. She had begun to define her path and carve a new narrative, not just for herself, but for Lily too. Yet, the echoes of her success mingled with the shadows of her fears. As she took a step back, the uncertainty still loomed. How would she sustain this momentum? Would she act on the newfound confidence or retreat into the safety of the familiar? Jake stepped closer, grounding her in the present, shielding her from doubt. "This is just the beginning, Sarah," he said softly. "What's next for you?" At that moment, Sarah recognized the dawn ahead, the challenge of continuous growth that came with the territory of pursuing a passion and nurturing a dream. A wave of determination surged. If she could publicly unveil her dreams, what else might she dare confront? The future shimmered tantalizingly ahead, shimmering with promise and threat alike. But within it lay an undeniable truth. The very act of taking this leap had begun to unearth a deeper sense of self. Sarah smiled, yet as she felt the excitement build, a nagging thought pinched at her. What wild prospects would this journey truly demand of her next? With the lingering warmth of applause echoing in her ears, Sarah grasped Jake's words like a lifeline. She shifted her thoughts from the apprehension of the moment to the possibilities that lay just ahead. "What's next?" echoed in her mind, not as a question, but a challenge that felt invigorating. The next few days unfolded in a whirlwind of activity. Sarah found herself immersed in her vision, sketching ideas in a weathered notebook that had accompanied her through countless shifts at the diner. The pages brimmed with outlines for community projects, veterinary workshops, and even guest speaker events at schools to inspire young minds. Each stroke of her pencil became a foundation, a tile in the mosaic shaping her future. But for every surge of creative energy, Sarah faced waves of doubt. Memories of past failures bubbled to the surface, thick and suffocating. A familiar voice whispered, "Who do you think you are?" Yet, as quickly as those thoughts came, she countered them with Jake's supportive gaze, which sharpened her resolve. This time, She wouldn't allow her fears to write her story. As the days passed, she began reaching out to local ranchers and veterinarians, introducing herself and sharing her vision. Each conversation, while exhilarating, unveiled another layer of her uncertainty. Some responses were supportive, others merely polite. But rather than feeling disheartened, she recognized the weight of those rejections as opportunities for refinement. The world did not owe her acceptance. She must earn the trust of the community she longed to join. One afternoon, she stood outside Parker S. Ranch, its sprawling fields glistening under the sun, casting an inviting aura. The owner, an aged cowboy named Hank, had become a reluctant yet respected figure in town. Yet as Sarah ventured into his barn, her heart raced with anticipation and anxiety. "Hey there, Miss Sarah," Hank greeted her, leaning against a wooden post, the scent of hay and leather anchoring the space. "What brings you around?" "I wanted to discuss a collaboration," she said, striving to sound confident despite the trembling of her hands. She outlined her plans, enthusiasm threading through her words. But silence fell afterward, the weight of her hopes pressing down. Hank straightened, his eyes narrowing as he considered her proposition. "You want to take on the horses? You think you're ready for that kind of responsibility?" Heat rushed to her cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and frustration pricking at her self-esteem. "I have a passion for animal care," Sarah asserted, willing herself to meet his gaze. "I want to help heal them and share what I learn. I'm ready to learn from you." At his skeptical glance, she faltered for a moment, the long shadow of doubt threatening to engulf her again. Yet, somewhere in that thick haze of worry, an ember sparked. "You don't know me yet, but I can show you my commitment." Hank studied her for what felt like both an eternity and a fleeting moment, before finally nodding slowly. "All right then, we'll see if you can keep up with the sun and the dust." A bubble of triumph erupted within her, threatening to burst. This was an opportunity, a chance to prove herself, not just to Hank, but to herself as well. Yet, as the excitement coursed through her veins, it birthed new uncertainties. Would she truly measure up under the weight of the expectations? Nights melted into mornings, and soon Sarah stood atop the ridge of the ranch, watching the sun rise over the horizon. Her heart raced with anticipation of what lay ahead. But the jumble of anxiety and exhilaration twisted uneasily in her belly. As she took her first steps toward what she envisioned as her new life, a nagging sensation interrupted her thoughts. This undertaking would demand sacrifices. Every stride forward threatened old patterns of comfort, forcing her to confront the very fears that had kept her shackled. "Are you really ready for this?" she whispered to the wind, seeking clarity in the unraveling chaos. But standing there, breathless with possibility, Sarah felt the stirring of something deeper, a growing belief in her ability to forge a new path. She had proclaimed her desire to help animal stories. Yet, as she navigated this uncharted territory, she recognized her own story was far from written. A sudden rustle behind her caught her attention. As she turned, visions of a different life flashed before her eyes, one that was uncertain, yet ripe with potential. Her thoughts crystallized around the figure approaching. Perhaps, in this blend of vulnerability and courage, she would find the guidance she needed for her next steps. "Sarah," a familiar voice called, and as Jake stepped into the light behind her, she felt the electricity of confrontation stir anew this time, with her own dark fears and the weight of her ambitions. What would she truly have to sacrifice to move forward and embrace the life she'd only begun to imagine? The morning sun had barely streaked across the sky when Sarah found herself standing on the dirt path leading to the horse paddock. The air was fresh, imbued with the crisp scent of hay and the unmistakable essence of something wild, untamed, and full of promise. Her hands trembled slightly as she clasped the worn leather reins in her fingers, the connection to the majestic creatures before her deeply grounding. Jake's presence was a warm shadow behind her, a source of strength she hadn't fully acknowledged until now. "You look ready," he said, his tone encouraging yet neutral. There were no grand words or dramatic gestures, only quiet assurance. She would need every ounce of that assurance today. "I think I can handle this," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Yet, doubt whispered like a sinister breeze at the back of her mind. Did she truly have what it took? She was about to embark on the first practical challenge in the realm of animal care. She wanted to embrace working with Hank's horses. Jake leaned over, examining one of the horses, a stunning chestnut mare with a fierce spirit. This one's named Blaze. She is a handful, but a good teacher if you listen. Determined, Sarah approached Blaze, careful and calculated. The horse snorted, tossing her head as if gauging the newcomer's intentions. Standing there, Sarah experienced a potent mix of exhilaration and fear. Every heartbeat seemed to resonate as she recalled the shadowed moments of her past failures, all arrows pointing towards yet another potential misstep. "Touch her," Jake prompted gently, his tones somehow urging and soothing. "Trust your instincts." Sarah reached out, her hand trembling as she touched Blaze's warm side, feeling the pulse of life beneath her fingertips. In that instant of blend of confidence and hesitation, something shifted within her. She was not just here to learn. She was here to connect, to engage beyond the boundaries of her fear. As Ben watched, Hank shuffled over, arms crossed, and an inscrutable expression on his face. "Show me what you've got, Miss Sarah. Can you handle her?" "Just watch," Jake whispered, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, the encouragement spurring her on. Taking a deep breath, Sarah focused on Blaze, recalling the techniques she had learned in her research. As she began to speak softly to the mare, her voice grew in strength and clarity. "Hey there, girl. It's okay. I'm here." She felt the energy shift, felt the horse begin to relax in her touch. But doubt lurked, lurking dangerously. What if it didn't last? What if Blaze decided not to cooperate? The fear that had dogged her throughout her journey clawed at her as she pressed forward, bracing against the tide of anxiety. Hank watched keenly, a critical eye analyzing every moment. "Control is key," he said, his voice gruff yet observant. "But so is empathy. Can you show her both?" His words pierced through Sarah, forcing her to internalize the battle she faced, to balance her gut feelings with the analytical strategies cluttering her mind. She would need to find that equilibrium. In that moment of clarity, she realized her path was to cultivate not only her skills, but her emotional responses as well, a duality of strength and sensitivity that would define her journey. With each gentle move, she found herself not just coordinating her actions, but harmonizing with Blaze the mare as fluctuating rhythm, guiding her deeper into confidence. As Sarah experienced the bond grow, she caught a glimpse of her potential. This was who she was meant to be, nurturing life and facing challenges head-on, not shying away from discomfort, but embracing it. Jubilant energy surged within, leaving no room for her earlier uncertainties. Hank's eyes softened slightly as he nodded. "You've got it in you. Just keep it up." Elated, Sarah looked towards Jake. His smile radiated understanding and pride. It dawned on her how monumental this moment was, not just in her professional sphere, but in her life. She was becoming the person she had always aspired to be. Yet the truth lingered, unspoken. Every lesson learned from this point would come with its own set of challenges and perhaps its own demons. "We're not just partners in training. We're allies in this. You understand?" Jake's words anchored her, reminding her that growth would demand not only skill, but also trust in her capabilities, and trust in those she surrounded herself with. Sarah turned back toward the paddock, determination unwavering. She would face whatever lay ahead with resolve. But as the sun began to rise higher, revealing shadows of the challenges still lurking in her path, a thought gripped her. Was she truly ready to confront the darker aspects of her own journey? The day was just beginning, and beneath that vast sky, she sensed the delicate strands of her past intertwining with the fresh tapestry of her future. She felt a pull, one that would inevitably lead her to confront not just the horses, but herself. What hidden fears must she now face as she delved deeper into this newfound purpose? The soft whinny of Blaze interrupted Sarah's thoughts. She felt a sudden wave of defiance, rising within her a resolve to not only confront the horse, but also to confront the myriad challenges awaiting her. Despite her heart racing, she took a step closer, determined to embrace the fear that had shadowed her. "Are you ready for challenge 2? Hank's voice broke the silence, cutting through her introspection. The challenge hung in the air, heavy with expectations. It was not just Blaze who would test Sarah, it was the expectations of Hank, Jake, and most importantly, herself. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steadier than it had any right to be. "Get her to trust you completely. Right now, she may stand still, but she remembers how to bolt if she chooses. Your task, get her to trot with you." There was a glint of challenge in Hank's voice. A part of her hesitated. The idea of pushing Blaze beyond her current comfort was intimidating. What if she hesitated and the mare did bolt? Yet, deep inside, another voice rallied, urging her to accept the challenge. It was time to confront the fear of failure that had been her constant companion. "Okay," Sarah replied, her tone resolute. "Show her you're in charge, but make her feel safe," Hank instructed, crossing his arms in a way that suggested he was both in control and curious about her response. Sarah nodded, visualizing the dance of energy and movement. It was a delicate balance she needed to maintain, and suddenly she felt acutely aware of every element: her own breathing, the weight of the reins in her hands, the soft rustling of hay. This was not just about horses. This was about her own journey, stepping into her power. Taking a moment to ground herself, she envisioned the connection she had established just moments before. With renewed determination, she approached Blaze again, speaking softly but with authority. "Let's move together, Blaze. I need you to trust me." As she began to walk, she maintained steady eye contact with the mare, instinctively shifting her body in a way that invited Blaze to follow. The tension in the air shifted again, and to her surprise, the chestnut mare took a tentative step forward. "You're doing great," Jake encouraged, standing nearby to observe. His calm presence anchored her, fueling a sense of confidence. Sarah felt the reins tighten slightly as Blaze matched her pace. With each step, a flicker of victory ignited within her. However, it was still not enough. She needed Blaze to feel this was not just a command, but an invitation to dance. "Now, let us trot," she commanded, her voice commanding yet infused with gentleness. At first, Blaze resisted, flicking her ears back in uncertainty. Sarah hesitated. This was the moment of truth. Could she foster the trust necessary to encourage the mare into a rhythm that would elevate both of them? All those moments of self-doubt surged back, but she leaned into it, embracing the discomfort. What would happen if she simply let go of her fear of failure? A sudden thought struck her. Perhaps it was not just Blaze that needed a trust, but she herself. With that realization, Sarah took a deep breath and began to jog, pushing her own boundaries as she matched her energy with Blaze. To her astonishment, the mare responded, initially hesitant, but then bounding forward to match her pace. They were moving together, her heart soared. Each jolt of motion catalyzed not just a connection with Blaze, but with her own burgeoning self. As they continued to trot, Hank's approving nod felt like validation, seeping through the layers of her fear. Jake joined them, adding energy with his encouragement. "You got this. Breathe and trust." The exhilaration swelled as they picked up pace. The boundaries blurred between horse and rider, fear and empowerment. This was a revelation. She could dictate her own pace, both with Blaze and in her own life. But as the thrill surged, a shadow of doubt threatened at the edges of her mind. Would this moment last? Did she possess the strength to maintain it? Just then, Hank called out, drawing her. "Attention! Great job! But remember, trust is built over time. You'll face setbacks, especially when you least expect them." The weight of his words settled in her chest. She needed to prepare herself for the inevitable trials that would come, each challenge a potential precipice leading her back into the spiral of doubt. "Are you ready for the next step?" It'll test you both in ways you haven't imagined, Hank added, and a chill crept down her spine. Sarah stood still, the breath caught in her throat. What unexplored depths awaited her in this journey? Would she be able to face the trials when they came, or would she falter under the weight of what lay ahead? The thought lingered ominously, leaving her with a quiet dread and a bold anticipation mingled together. It was not just the horses she needed to connect with, it was the essence of herself she had yet to fully discover. The sunlight poured through the barn's open doors, illuminating motes of dust that danced in the air. The scent of hay and horseflesh filled Sarah's lungs with every deep breath she took, grounding her amidst the rising tide of uncertainty. She glanced at Blaze, who watched her with a mix of curiosity and wariness. This was no time for hesitation. Today, she would confront the next hurdle that loomed larger than any fence. "Next step," Hank called, his tone steady. "You'll be facing Blaze alone for a while. I want to see you build a bond without my guidance." The weight of Hank's expectation settled heavily on her shoulders, and a flicker of panic awakened again. Alone with Blaze? Every part of her wanted to argue. What if she stumbled without assistance? Yet, as she caught Blaze's eye, she sensed a challenge in the mare's flick of her tail, a challenge that echoed her own unspoken fears. Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded. Confidence swelled within her. This was her opportunity to grow, to transform. It wasn't just about Blaze. It was about her own metamorphosis. This would require a recalibration of how she viewed her abilities, a step toward dismantling the wall she had built around herself. "Hey, girl," she murmured, approaching the mare with a deliberate calmness. "Let us see if we can deepen this connection, shall we?" The subtle tremor of her voice betrayed her nerves, but she squashed it down. Determination took the wheel. She began with simple exercises, reinforcing the connection they had almost established. With gentle cues, she invited Blaze to walk beside her, aware of her own posture, her own energy. Cold glances inside clamored for control, but she focused on the warmth of the moment, the rhythm of their shared breaths, the thud of their hearts sinking in an unspoken melody. "Now, Sarah," Hank's voice broke through her internal monologue. "It's about softness and persistence. If Blaze doesn't want to move, give her time, but don't back down. Every horse is a mirror reflecting its rider's confidence or doubt." Replaying Hank's words in her mind, she reminded herself that to gain trust required patience. With careful steps, she guiding Blaze with her body language, moving her arms with an easy rhythm, inviting the mare to respond. Slowly, Blaze began to inch closer. Sarah's heart soared with cautious optimism. That moment of contact was the fulcrum upon which her growth pivoted. She was building something much more significant than a simple horse-rider relationship. She was reinforcing trust and resilience within herself. But challenges were mounting. Just as she thought they had found their rhythm, Blaze halted, tossing her head in defiance. Having faced her own anxiety for so long, Sarah understood the impulse deeply. It was a refusal to yield, a challenge thrown back, an echo of her own past struggles. "Okay, let us take a second," she said softly, recognizing the importance of creating a serene space. She stepped back, inhaling deeply, using the moment to refocus her energy. Visualizing the connection instead of the resistance, she began to strategize, concocting plans to entice Blaze. "Maybe a bit of play will help," she said, a spark igniting within her. Play was the antidote to anxiety. Lightness would cut through the weight of fear. She grabbed a soft lunge whip, moving with fluidity, inviting Blaze into a game. To her relief, the mare's ears perked up, curiosity igniting like a flame. Sarah waved the whip gently, producing a rhythm that broke the cycle of tension. It was indeed a dance, an exchange of trust and enthusiasm, every crack of the whip infused with encouragement. The mare leapt forward, and Sarah felt the thrill of triumph. They were not just overcoming a barrier. They were engaging in an interaction that demanded both emotional investment and vulnerability, demanding her to embrace the art of leading instead of controlling. Yet, just as she felt their connection solidifying, a knot of fear tightened in her stomach. What if it all fell apart? What if one misstep shattered this newfound bond? Resolutely, she shook off the thought like the dust in the barn. Keeping her focus on the energetic play, she redirected the doubt into a fierce determination to continue. "Let us keep moving forward, Blaze," she urged, bolstered by a flicker of hope. What she craved was not just mastery over this challenge, but a deeper connection to herself as she harnessed her strengths and pushed against her fears. But beyond the immediate thrill, an underlying question loomed: how could she maintain this newfound relationship and continue to evolve, especially when the inevitable challenges threatened to rear their heads? With that question echoing within her, she felt anticipation bubble up inside. What would the next challenge reveal, both about Blaze and herself? The thought sent a shiver up her spine. Proving herself was still just the beginning. Would her evolving trust withstand future trials? The air in the barn had shifted, thick with a mix of anticipation and tension by the time Sarah took her next steps beside Blaze. The mare had accepted her invitation to play, but with each leap and turn, Sarah felt the clock ticking, reminding her that their connection was fragile, still untested outside this playful bubble. Lost in the moment, she allowed her mind to drift, reflecting on past memories of failure, moments etched in her consciousness like scars. The rides that had ended with her dismounted in embarrassment and bruised egos felt closer than she would have liked to admit. Yet, with Blaze, something felt different this time. She had the chance to reshape her story. It was the process of transforming fear into trust that intrigued her, an evolution that required more than a mere physical connection. "Okay, girl, let us see if we can do something new," she murmured, feeling the confidence churn within her. If she wanted to elevate their bond, they needed to take it a step further. She envisioned the next exercise a simple lateral movement, something that required cooperation and trust. She adjusted her posture, sending a soft signal for Blaze to follow. The mare hesitated for a split second, and Sarah's heart raced. It was a microcosm of her life, every trembling breath based on her decision to either succumb to insecurity or rise above it. "You can trust me," she whispered, trying to project conviction. As Blaze stepped sideways, Sarah felt a wave of exhilaration. They were starting to communicate without barriers. But just then, a loud clang echoed from the barn door, the sound of someone approaching. Sarah's heart dropped, her concentration fracturing like glass. "Keep going, just focus on Blaze," she reminded herself, retreating further into their moment. Yet the intruder, a cowboy in worn jeans and a faded flannel shirt, made her pulse quicken for all the wrong reasons. Would this new figure become another judge in her life's precarious competition? But when he stepped inside, his presence exuded an undeniable confidence, an ease that contrasted sharply with her own tight frame. His gaze riveted on her, a curious smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Looks like you've got quite the spar going here," he remarked, taking slow steps closer. "Thanks. I'm just trying." Her voice faltered as she searched for words to explain, suddenly feeling exposed under the weight of his attention. "I remember when I first started training. It was the fear of failing that held me back," he interrupted, his sincerity sharp. "But you know what? The horses are always ready to teach you, whether you're ready or not." His words gripped her like a lifeline. If he could face vulnerabilities and learn, so could she. But shadows of doubt flickered in her mind. Was she merely filling the role of an imposter? "Do you think it gets easier?" she asked, desperation creeping into her tone. The admission hung between them, raw and unguarded. "Not always," the cowboy replied, his demeanor shifting slightly as he assessed her. "But sometimes it's about who you choose to become when faced with the challenge. How willing are you to pursue your own strength?" The question lanced through her composure, forcing her to confront a deeper truth within herself. Was she willing to face her insecurities? Could she transform them into a weapon instead of a limitation? As she grappled with these questions, Blaze danced slightly, sensing the tension. Stay with me, Sarah murmured, grounding herself anew, hoping to shield the burgeoning bond from outside influences. But in that very moment, she realized that external challenges were only reflections of her inner battles, and the cowboy-esque presence served as an ever-present reminder of her determination to push past doubt. A cheeky grin split the cowboy-esque face. You've got raw talent, but it's going to take more than confidence. You ready to really dig in? The echo of his challenge functioned like a clarion call in her mind, stirring dormant ambitions. Would she step bravely into the arena of mastering both her craft and selfhood? And could their connection withstand the scrutiny of this new observer? The stakes had just been raised, and Sarah felt the intoxicating lure of her next challenge enfolding around her. She wasn't simply a novice in a barn anymore. She was a fighter on the brink of evolution. Would she seize the moment the cowboy had offered, or would her fears once again creep in to dismantle her hard-won bond with Blaze? Days turned into weeks as Sarah embraced the gritty, exhilarating challenge of training with Blaze. Each morning would find her underneath the morning sun, leading the mare through various exercises, attempting to build a bond of trust that was both delicate and powerful. She was no longer merely the waitress from the diner. She was a steadfast learner with aspirations of becoming a veterinarian, reaffirming her commitment to herself and Lily. As the season changed, so it did Sarah. Where doubt once loomed large like a thunderstorm, certainty began to fill that space, bathing her in renewed purpose. Each small victory getting Blaze to trot alongside her. Mastering lateral movement with fluidity reinforced not just her skill, but the deeper value of persistence and resilience. The whispers of doubt faded with every stride, replaced by an emerging clarity she belonged here. With every session, Blaze became her mirror, reflecting back Sarah's growing confidence. Hank, the seasoned ranch owner, started to see her potential. The way he observed her one day as she guided Blaze effortlessly through a series of jumps stirred a flicker of pride within her. "You've come a long way, he said, his gruff voice softer than usual. "Keep this up, and you may just surprise yourself." A lightness swelled in Sarah's chest, yet alongside it persisted a caution. The balance of risk and achievement was not lost on her. Her past lingered cautiously in the wings, a stark reminder of the struggles she had endured. But each time she mounted Blaze, she pressed through that fear, determined not to allow her past to dictate her future. Then came a crisp October morning that altered the trajectory of Sarah's journey. Jake, who had become more than just a mentor, he was a partner in this vision, invited her to a local ranching event where trainers from across the state would showcase their skills. "It's time the community sees what you're capable of," he declared with excitement. Anxiety clawed at her insides, but Jake's assuring smile spoke of unwavering belief, igniting a spark. "If Blaze, and you can best the challenges, it will solidify your abilities in a way nothing else can." The day of the event arrived, presenting a festive atmosphere buoyed by chatter and excitement. The sun poured brightly, and Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Yet there was also a thrill that coursed through her veins, a recognition that, standing there, she was on the cusp of something greater. As she entered the arena with Blaze, her heart raced with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The crowd roared, their enthusiasm palpable. Her gaze flitted among familiar faces. Lily, beaming with pride from the front row, and Jake, who stood as her steadfast supporter, his eyes twinkling with encouragement. "Remember, trust your instincts," Hank's voice echoed in her mind as she prepared for the first test. Focusing on Blaze, she recalled the bond they formed, a tether of understanding that eclipsed her fears. The world narrowed into a crystalline moment, defined by connection and intention. With a deep breath, she guided Blaze through the course, embodying the calm yet determined spirit that she had cultivated over the last few months. As they navigated each obstacle, she listened to Blaze's subtle cues, leaning into the partnership they had forged. The connection was electric, a silent pledge, an understanding that transcended mere riding. This was a shared journey, a resonance of trust that manifested in shared motion. The applause grew louder, wrapping around them like a warm embrace, filling her with exhilaration. Each successful jump melded into the next with rhythmic precision, a dance of empowerment amidst a sea of spectators. And as the final obstacle loomed, Sarah felt a rush of clarity punctuated by confidence. The realization washed over her. She had transformed. Completing the course elicited deafening applause, but for Sarah, it was Lily's enthusiastic cheer that resonated deeply, filling her with more warmth than the sun above. The moment spent, doubting herself, and her journey faded against the overwhelming joy of achievement and acknowledgement. She delivered Blaze a gentle pat, a silent commitment to continue nurturing their bond. Later, after the demonstrations, Jake approached with glowing admiration. "You did it, Sarah. You've captured both the heart of Blaze and of the crowd. They see your passion, your growth." The validation solidified her sense of self. She was no longer merely hoping to chase dreams. She had proven herself capable of living them. Sarah felt a surge of pride within, not just from the accolades, but from the inner metamorphosis, a reclamation of her identity, one fueled by resilience, responsibility, and authenticity. At that moment, amidst the celebration, she glanced at Lily. Seeing the bright spark of possibility mirrored in her daughter's eyes steeled her resolve. They were embarking on a new journey together, one where both mother and daughter ventured towards uncharted territories of dreams fulfilled and futures built on courage. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of pink and orange, Sarah stood tall. She recognized she had not just conquered a challenge, she had transformed fear into abundance. No longer the waitress struggling to find herself, she became a competent force, solidly confident in her aspirations, ready to tackle the next chapter of her life. This was just the beginning, the dawn of a radiant path ahead, woven with the promise of growth yet to come. Now, if you want to be part of more transformative journeys like Sarah's, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for tales of resilience and achievement. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more incredible stories. Comment below with your thoughts and theories about Sarah's journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this empowering video with at least 5 friends who need to witness her incredible conclusion.